In this video, I'm gonna go over some myths about using the rotary. Initially, I was gonna make a video on removing water spots from the glass with a rotary, but I don't have a tripod here, so I'm just gonna skip that video. And I really want you to pay attention because one is gonna go over some myths on what people say about rotaries, why a lot of the times those aren't true or aren't applicable. And then the last myth I cover, it's gonna be about pricing, and it should really open your eyes of thinking, oh, well, this takes a lot longer, or like, oh, how do I charge for this? The last portion of this video should clarify a lot about using a rotary and doing extra work. Myth number one, which is going to be the most dominant one that everyone talks about, which is the main reason, is that you're gonna burn through paint. Now, with any tool in any industry, if not used properly, can cause problems. Doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're in the kitchen cooking dinner and you're not careful of how you use a knife, you can cut yourself. Like, quite frankly, that can happen with literally anything, right? Now, does that mean when you're cooking dinner, you're gonna use the most plastic safe, dull knife because you don't wanna cut yourself? Of course not. That would be counterintuitive to like just a good, proper cutting of whatever you're doing, right? It's the same thing with the rotary polisher. Like, can you burn paint with a rotary? Yes. Can you burn paint with a DA? Yes. Now, does a DA make it more difficult to burn through paint? Yes. But does that mean if you, for 1 second, leave this rotary on the paint for too long, you're gonna burn through the paint? Absolutely not. So at the end of the day, it's a tool to be used. Now, it's on you as the professional, as the person that's running the business, to know how to use these tools. And that's something that I'd really focus on. Like, you are the professional. You are the person that's supposed to be, are being paid to detail cars. So if you by default say, oh, I don't use a rotary because it's unsafe, because I can burn through paint, that's not the tool's problem, it's your problem. It's a problem of skill set, right? It's a problem of confidence. It's a problem of you not having the reps or the experience with using the rotary polisher. Again, we use, let me move that the way. We use DA polishers all the time. There's cars that we polish that we don't pull out the rotary. But again, like, each tool has a time and place, right? Like, if you are gonna use a rotary, you're gonna charge more because maybe you're doing a multi-step correction. Whereas if you're only doing a 2-step correction and you don't need the rotary, or they're not paying you to do a multi-step correction and you're only doing a 2-step correction, well, then you're only gonna use a DA. But this is simply just another tool to have in your arsenal. That's it. It's nothing more or nothing less than that. Being scared of burning through the paint is literally just a lack of skill and experience, because you can get quite aggressive. Let's say you can get quite aggressive and the paint be 100% safe and okay. Like, this isn't a dangerous tool. And the reason why I talk about this is because it's such an effective tool when you have a heavily swirled vehicle that has a lot of water spots and deep scratches or a ton of swirls. A rotary objectively will cut so much faster to remove those defects, keep on pressing the trigger, versus a DA. Like, this will save you so much time when it comes to effectively getting maximum cut on the paint. The rotary will outbeat the DA by a long shot. On the flat panels, on the curved panels, on the real intricate areas, on the real small tight spaces, like, the rotary is just a very, very beneficial tool. That's it. It's not the end all be all. It's not the only thing you can use. But again, it's just another tool to have in your arsenal if you're doing this as a business. And as you'll hear throughout the video, I am putting this in a perspective of running a business and being a professional detailer. And the way that we manage our business, whether it be the customer's information, booking out our schedules, sending out quotes, invoices, or collecting deposits, has always been through Jobber. I've been using it for the last 5 years in my business. When I was solo, when we were strictly mobile, when we were mobile and shop, when we hired employees, and now that we're strictly at the shop, Jobber has helped me really streamline my operation. So if you want to get a free 14-day trial plus a special discount, click the link down below and give it a try. Myth number 2 is that the rotaries are outdated and the DA polisher does just as good of a job as a rotary. Now again, here's the thing, and it's going to kind of tie into the first part, where there's been plenty of videos where someone is working with a DA polisher, and when they go to put the polisher on the pad or on the car, or maybe they move it around, the pad goes flying off and the backing plate makes contact with the car. which means they absolutely shred the car in that one little spot because they made full contact with the polisher to the paint. And the reason why I say that is things can always go wrong. Again, we've had times, not many, maybe like 3 times that I'm aware of, where either the backing plate or the pad, the Velcro on the pad is a little worn out now, that once you release the pressure, the down pressure of the polisher, yeah, the pad goes flying off. And if you don't catch it fast enough, you'll just slam the backing plate, spinning at full speed, right to the polisher. And again, that in itself can create damage to the paint. So it's not a rotary, it's not a DA, it's a Velcro on the pad thing. And again, what's the, if you damage the paint or scratch the paint in that regard, well, now what's the excuse? Do we not use a DA polisher anymore? Because even though it's better than the DA, you can still cause damage and problems if you let that mistake happen, right? And at that point, again, it's not a rotary or a DA thing. It's just the pad. Like you didn't know that the Velcro was weak enough that it's not gonna stick onto the polisher anymore. So in terms of safe, it's not safe of, oh, the DA polisher is safer than the rotary, right? Because again, if the Velcro comes off, either one, you're ruining the paint. The way you need to look at it is the tool is safe based on your level of skill and experience. Does not matter which kind of polish you're using, a 3-inch DA, 15mm throw cordless, a 3-inch rotary, a 5-inch rotary. None of this matters, right? Each one can be dangerous. Each one can cause damage. Each one can have its own pros and cons. And it comes back to the technician, to the detailer, to you having that skill set to know what the boundaries are, okay? Like, yeah, is this safer because like it's not gonna burn, burn the paint on the edges? Yeah. It also means it's a lot weaker. It also means you're gonna spend a lot more time trying to finesse the angle to make sure it doesn't bog down to get the cut. Where again, if you know what you're doing and you have the reps and you practice, this thing will blow through in a good way. Like it'll do an effective job on the curved panels or the edges, because like it's made for that. It's made to give you a lot more of an effective cut, where areas where this one will just struggle a lot more. And again, you can get those cuts with this one, but if you're doing this as a profession, if you are the professional, if you are the person that people are paying for, this is just a more effective tool to have in your arsenal. So myth number 3 is you need to go get trained in order to learn how to use a rotary. Absolutely not. This is something, again, it's not a difficult thing to learn. It doesn't take you 3 months to understand how to use the rotary. In one session, you watching YouTube videos and working on your own car will get you up to speed with a rotary, right? Again, it's like when you learn how to drive standard, right? Like a manual car. The mechanics of it, in terms of how you actually work the vehicle with the clutch and the gas and the brake and the gears, you can learn it in an hour. To make it second nature, to where you can go on a dead stop, where you can go on an incline, where you like, that comes with time and experience, obviously, right? It's the same thing with the rotary. In one session, you can learn, okay, this is how I'm supposed to hold it. This is the angle. Here's how I'm supposed to move it. Now, over time, as you practice more and more, you'll just naturally get better at it, right? You'll try this, you'll try that, you'll see if this works or if that doesn't work, or it starts to bounce on you, and you kind of finesse at this and you make sure that the pad is flat, or you're whatever. So like it's just something that you'll learn more and more as you get more reps. But like, even if you go get trained, right, the same still applies. You still have to come back, and again, this is applicable for any training. When we went to go for window tint, for PPF, for vinyl wrap, the training class in itself is a great starting point. It's a baseline. But for you to master that skill, for you to be very comfortable and confident with that skill and that service, comes in repetition. It comes in you practicing every single day, or as much as you can, to master that one skill. And that's not gonna happen by saying, oh, well, I have to go get trained because, man, like, I need to go to that 2-day training class on rotary. Trust me, it'll help. But that's not gonna negate the fact that you still have to come back home and practice every day, or as much as you can, to master that skill. The training class is the baseline. The mastery comes in the reps, and there's no way around that. I believe we're like on myth number 4 now. So on this one, it's gonna be, oh, well, it takes twice as long to cut with the rotary than just a DA. Because with the rotary, oftentimes, which is what I really do, is you do a half step. You're gonna cut with the rotary, it's gonna leave holograms. So to remove those holograms, you're gonna do a half step of a light a cut step just to remove, to refine the holograms, and then you go into your polishing. Now, here's where it really comes down to you being a professional and running a business, okay? On a one, let's call it a all-in-one step, right? Whereas just a dual action polisher with a, light foam cutting pad and an all-in-one polish, right? That's gonna be, I'm just making up numbers here, $400. It's gonna take you 3 hours to complete, okay? You're not gonna get much defect removal. You're just gonna gloss up the paint and add some protection, right? So that's an all-in-one. A two-step correction, where most people fall under, is you're gonna grab your dual action polisher, you're gonna put a microfiber cutting disc, you're gonna cut, and then you're gonna come back and refine the polishing, right? So that's a two-step. And let's say for that one, it's gonna be $900, right? Now, here's where it comes to running a business, okay? Let's just say, even if, and it doesn't take twice as long to cut with the rotary, but let's just say it did, all right? Let's just say it takes twice as long to cut with the rotary. You would have a third tier for doing rotary work. So if it's $900 for just for a two-step correction, let's say it'd be $1,600 to do a multi-step correction. Now again, this is where it comes to you running a business. If you want to do a multi-step correction, where let's say it does take twice as long because you're going to get far superior results with a rotary, you charge for that amount, right? So if someone wants an all-in-one polish, are you going to do a two-step correction? Of course not, because they're not paying for that. So if you want to do a multi-step correction and just absolutely get at 90% defect removal, well, they're gonna pay for that, right? You're not doing a two-step correction detail, you're not doing a multi-step correction detail, paint correction, when they're paying for a two-step correction, right? So for instance, when we do a multi-step correction, which includes the rotary, right? The rotary, the half step, and the polish, we're checking our work, right? We have lights, we're checking, we're seeing how it's looking, we're looking through the polish, we hit it again, we look again. Like, we're doing a very, very detailed job with a multi-step correction. With a two-step correction, we're not getting that granular because it's not that level. So for instance, when we offer our services, with, hey, here is the all-in-one, not much defect removal. Here's a two-step correction, it's about 60 to 70% removal. And with that service, we're not checking and going after every single angle because that's not that level of work. It's gonna remove, let's say 70% removal, 80% removal. It's gonna look fantastic. It's gonna be a night and day difference. But we're not taking it to the level of the rotary work, where we're really gonna go after every angle. Now, if you wanna get to that point, if you want the most drastic difference, that's where the multi-step correction. So multi-step correction, when we are using the rotary, $1,800. If you just want a two-step correction, which is still gonna have a massive transformation, $900. If you just want a light gloss up, some protection, you're not worried about the defects, all-in-one polish, $400. So when it comes to using the rotary, and again, it doesn't take it doesn't take half more time. It doesn't take double the time to cut a vehicle with a rotary. But let's say even if it did, you charge accordingly for all these services because using a rotary is more skill and it does bring you better results. And again, like if you just want to stick with the two-step correction, that's fine. But adding an extra layer of work of saying, hey, if you want us to go all out, it's going to be $1,800 because it's going to take a lot more time because it's a lot more. Again, not literally double the work, right? But it's more of a specialty work to really get those results versus if you just want a two-step correction, again, it's gonna transform your paint. Your paint will look significantly better. It's just not to the extreme of how we work with the rotary. And again, this is what the options that you give to the customer. Because now if you're charging $900 for a two-step correction and you're doing all this crazy work, now I have to ask you, are you charging enough for your services, right? Because if a customer wants a multi-step correction and want us to go through a very intensive correction, well, they're going to pay for that, right? And if they don't want us to go to that level, well, they're more than happy to just go with a two-step correction. And for us, we don't try to push one or the other. We just give the customer the options of what they want, and they are able to select the level of results and effort they want us to put into it. If it's a heavily swirled vehicle and we would love to do a multi-step correction, but they just want to pay for two-step correction, no problem with us. We'll absolutely do that. We'll do the very best that we can to deliver the results based on the level of package that they purchased. If they want us to take it up a notch and to really dig out the swirls and go through 90% defect removal, well, yeah, we're gonna charge more because it takes more time. Not double time, but it is gonna take more time because it is a more skillful job and the results are gonna be a lot better. And even with everything I just said, it still changes based on how you're delivering the service, right? Maybe you do offer a two-step correction, but there's some areas based in your budget, like based on how you budgeted the work, that there are some areas where you're gonna hit the rotary because like maybe those specific areas just need a bit more oomph and the rotary will do the job perfectly for it. So again, it's not a black and white answer. Don't think like, oh, like this is exactly how he does it. No, like, things are fluid when you're running a business. Like you're gonna offer different services, different packages, different options based on what the customer wants, what they can afford, and what the results that they want. So don't look at this as a black and white, like, oh, this is exactly how it's supposed to be done. No, it's all based around what you offer, what the customer wants, and what they're gonna pay. That's what determines what you do. Because what I don't want is detailers to go and do this multi-step correction, and they're charging $800 for the work, and it's taking them 14 hours to complete the detail, right? That's why there's tiers to everything. Like, if you want us to do the very best and take it to the top of what we can do, even if you want to include like some wet sanding in there, yeah, that's going to be $2,100 just for the multi-step correction and the wet sanding. If you don't care about that level of work, you don't want to spend that much money, which we're perfectly okay with, like, we'll talk you down. If the customer is not fit for that kind of service, we're like, you don't need that. The two-step correction is perfectly fine. So if a customer doesn't want that, we'll go with the two-step correction, and it'll be, $1,100, let's say, for just making up numbers here. So that's how it works. It's not just saying, oh, well, the rotary takes double the time, so how am I gonna make money? Well, you charge accordingly. Like that's literally what it comes down to. It's not saying, oh, well, I can't fit that into my budget because it takes me now 16 hours instead of 12 hours to do the correction. Well, it's like, well, we'll charge for those 16 hours. And then you might say, oh, well, no one's gonna pay that much for that level of work. Well, it's like, well, now you're asking a different question. Now it's not about the rotary or the two-step. Now we're talking about, well, how are you marketing your business? How are you attracting the customers? And if no one's going for that premium of premium, well, that's fine then. Like, that's why it's your premium of premium. Because if you want this premium level of work, well, it's gonna cost you a lot more because the level of work and effort and time that goes into this service requires that premium level. So that's why, like, it's not just, I mean, I've gone on such a tangent now, but whatever polishing work you're gonna do, whether it's an all-in-one or one-step, two-step, three-step, four-step, five-step, doesn't matter. You charge accordingly for it. All right, but I'm gonna end it right there. I probably talked way more than I thought I was, so let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below, and I'll see you on the next video.